Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's discussion on game design in different contexts. We're going to kind of start by defining what different contexts I'm talking about, especially the ones that I'm going to be talking about today. Basically, any situation where you can use a game outside of entertainment purposes to further an objective would be the context that I'm talking about. Today, we're going to be talking about education, therapy, and workplace. Um, where education, and I'll get into this a little bit deeper as the slides go, but education, you can use games to teach concepts. Therapy, you can use games as a therapeutic tool to help um, patients get through complex or distressing topics. And workplace, you can use games to create uh, team building to further productivity or increase teamwork amongst staff. So let's start with education. So education, we have a couple major things that we can do with games, and we can, as designers, who are building an educational game or a game at a especially games bent to younger audiences. It's important to know these different roles that these games can play, and how to design our mechanics and our components in our game to help further that along. So, first, we'll talk concept reinforcement. Uh, Games can teach basic concepts, complex um, ideas, and things that will, on the surface, feel very complex or daunting for students to learn. But inside of a game, they have fun with it and are more likely to retain the information um, through the practical application of a game. Um, Definitely used in a lot of early learning situations with basic arithmetic or um, vocabulary, spelling, things like that. Games such as Scrabble or even games like Monopoly. As a child, I learned a lot of math through playing Monopoly. Um, these games kind of hide the idea of the learning that you're doing behind the fun that you're having while playing them. So the next thing is games can teach problem solving skills. So um, whether it's critical thinking or complex deduction, or whether it's group um, problem solving, interacting in groups. These are things that games do really well at teaching, while um, again hiding the idea that you're teaching something or that you're learning something behind a fun thing that people are playing. So when we are designing games to teach these problem solving skills, we want to make sure that the through line from gameplay to goal achievement uh, challenges the player to use these skills to increase their it's kind of, I guess, like muscle memory to help increase the probability that they'll retain the skills that they're using. Puzzle games are really good at this. The more that players are uh, solving puzzles or coming up with solutions or strategies to solve puzzles, the more iterations of that they get, the more likely they are to retain that information, retain those skills. The next thing that, and I had mentioned it earlier, but the next thing that we can do with games in education is teach collaborative learning, whether it's increasing teamwork or social skills, communication. Um, Games that have cooperative or group play aspects to them can help uh, people in educational situations um, learn how to better socialize or how to better problem solve amongst a group. Um, a good example of this, while not exactly an educational game, would be something like Pandemic, where it's as a cooperative game, and with a lot of different things that players can do. You can still the most important thing is to plan out your moves to solve the problem, um, amongst the entire group and not just go off on your own. So the hope is that when players collaborate more effectively, they are more likely to achieve a win in the game, and players who don't collaborate well see that that did not end in a victory, and it reinforces the idea that they need to work on their social skills or the communication, and teamwork to better their chances uh, at winning the game. My my best kind of anecdote for games in education actually is a personal story of my past. I used to play in elementary and middle school a series of games called the Academic Challenge games, and I tried to find an image of one of the games that I played, but unfortunately I couldn't. So this was the closest example that was similar to it, but there were games. One in particular was a dice game called Equations, and the idea was to build out mathematical equations using dice to reach a an answer, which at the time, and my earlier, like I said, elementary and middle school education taught me concepts like basic algebra, um, order of operations, and things like that. And uh, those games, through all sorts of subjects, whether it was math or history. I was very good at the history game. Or there was a game called Propaganda, which literally taught logical fallacy through gameplay. These were things that I think really helped educate or engage or elevate my education at a much earlier age, and were much more effective than being in a classroom. Next up, we're going to talk about games in a therapy setting. So, um, things that you can do to use games as therapeutic tools. A lot of times, uh, especially with younger people, expressing emotions or getting through certain traumas or emotional situations can be very difficult, and opening up to a therapist or to somebody who is trying to help therapeutically can be difficult. So games kind of level the playing field. They kind of put things on kind of a different setting where people can use the games to help express themselves. So with emotional expression, you can use games to kind of get these points across without um, directly asking the questions, or get putting a patient in a situation where they're uncomfortable talking about their issues. This is also kind of, there are games such as the grief board game that I've posted an image of here, that are kind of designed specifically to help those situations, but you can also use games that already exist for similar reasons. And this applies to all of these different parts of this slide. Um, but the best example that I have for that is something like a tabletop RPG, using Dungeons and Dragons, for instance, to help through role play, um, help people process different emotional issues. Definitely something that I have seen used before, and through your own game design, you can tailor a game, tailor a session of Dungeons and Dragons, for instance, to solving those issues. Um, I'm going to include the additional. It's not so much a paper game source, but I'm going to include an additional source in the module for this week that actually kind of backs that up. I've actually talked with a couple professional therapists and psychology uh, professionals who have used tools like that in their treatment process, kind of mostly on the video game side, but designing video games specifically for those instances. Also, a from a therapy perspective, using games to teach is also very useful tool. So, in the case of cognitive development, you can um, help those who have otherwise, whether it's a learning disability or a cognitive disability. I don't really want to use the word disability, but you it, therapists can use games that are designed to educate or to increase a skill in that sense to um, help reinforce those skills amongst in a patient. Used very effectively, I believe, um, in autism research, but also good for those who are in later stages of dementia or Alzheimer's, to improve memory, to improve recall, and higher cognitive functioning. And you can design games in ways that help reinforce those concepts. Um, Whether it's a memory game or whether it's a puzzle game, these things can be very useful in reinforcing those um, skills or developing those skills amongst patients. Also, as you know, as I said many times before, social interaction is something that can be uh, developed and reinforced through gameplay. Very useful in a therapeutic session. Again, I go back to the Dungeons and Dragons example where you can use a collaborative tabletop game, collaborative board game, or RPG to teach or to develop skills, social skills. Um, Again, used quite effectively in therapeutic settings. If you're developing a game that wants to that you want to focus on increasing social interaction, there are a lot of examples of this, whether it's something as simple as Cards Against Humanity or a more PG version like Apples to Apples, or a tabletop RPG or other collaborative games, um, kind of masking the idea of kind of masking the social aspect of it behind gameplay, eases people in when they're struggling to express themselves socially. Also, games are very useful as a stress relief tool. I'm not entirely sure why this keeps showing. My slides keep showing up with multiple. I don't know if you guys can see this, but multiple instances of certain words. It's not in the slides, but it is in my slideshow. I'm not really sure how that happened. Sorry, that was a tangent. Um, Stress relief in gaming, obviously something that people talk about a lot in video gaming. Um, these can be games can be designed to be cozy, to be um, fun and rewarding without being super competitive. Collaborative games, co-op games are very good for that. And anything that kind of just feels fun without being overly complex and overly stress inducing. My favorite example of this is a game called Hanabi, which is a co-op card game where players have a hand of cards that you actually hold backwards, so you don't see your cards, but other players do, and you have to kind of decide without communication which cards you want to play from your hand to build up uh, a row of fireworks as high as you can go, and everyone scores points based on how complex those fireworks are at the end of the game. It's very cool, and also very cozy. It's very calming to play the game because it's not like a huge deal if you win or lose, and it's just a really kind of intimate, personal kind of game experience. Okay, so next up, we're going to talk about gamification in the workplace. And there's a lot of meanings behind the idea of gamification in a professional setting, whether it's to increase productivity, such as point systems or uh, sweepstakes or rewards systems, or whether it's something to increase team building or collaboration through activities. You see a lot of media makes fun of things like corporate retreats or team building activities and things, but these games inside of a workplace scenario do help to increase these skills in employees. From an employer standpoint, promoting the use of games for team building or for um, productivity can help increase motivation or results or training even, while not being incredibly stressful for the employees. Something that a lot of employers are now kind of like leaning towards. I have a good example of this on a project I actually worked on. It's a video game thing, but I actually did create a VR based sensitivity training tool for a company a couple years ago that would walk you through a hiring situation. You were the hiring manager, and you had to interview a bunch of people and decide who to hire. And there were a lot of nuances and things that gamified the situation of how you rated each of the potential candidates, things that you rated them on that may not have been um, something that they said or something that you have read about them through their profiles, but also things that you see or things that you things that they have visual markers or actions that they do throughout the game. And this was a huge hit for the companies that licensed the tool, and it was a very good example of a training tool in the workplace, and also a at the end of the day a productivity tool because it was able to better prepare hiring managers to create or to hire better candidates, and not uh, and be cognizant of their own biases while they're in the hiring process. Um, and that's another thing that I think that learning as a gamification can do in learning situations and training situations. Um, you can help to kind of visually or um, uh, audibly um, focus on different weaknesses that employees have and to kind of close that gap. Um, sensitivity training is something that learning of your implicit bias to certain genders or races or education levels, and learning how to correct that can um, can be done in a way that feels a little bit more low stakes because it's fun or it's engaging. Um, I think that was my. Oh no, I have one more slide. Okay. So next up, we're going to talk about designing games for social impact. So we are going to get really in depth on game design for accessibility, ethics in gaming, and stuff next week. But I did want to talk a little bit about this because games kind of are a great equalizer when it comes to um, accessibility or when it comes to uh, different social statuses and everything. You can play a game, and games are inherently designed to be, as I've said before in the design process stuff, fair for those who are playing, or to highlight an idea that is unfair and kind of teach a lesson about it. So it's important to, if you are designing games, to make sure that your game designs are inclusive and accessible for people of all different abilities or backgrounds, education levels, so that these games can be enjoyed by as many people as possible. Um, in a more targeted situation, you can use gamification to develop kind of um, communities. So the second part of this slide talks about community engagement, and games can be used to foster those social connections or kind of promote cultural exchange in the way that um, again, games bring kind of everyone to the table, become a social experience, and kind of don't, if they're not designed to do it, they don't really necessarily care about anybody's particular social status, but it does promote a more inclusive environment for people to kind of bridge those gaps amongst those different social cliques. And I'll talk a little bit about sustainable solutions. So something goes back to education, is you can use gaming as a way to educate people on issues within whether it's environmentally conscious reasons, scientific topics, things that can help to promote a certain sustainable narrative. Board games can be used in, or all paper games really can be used in ways that help to educate or to reinforce the understanding of the societal impact of certain actions. The best example that I have for games that kind of promote um, environmental impact or educate on sustainability um, are games like Photosynthesis or Wingspan, which are both games that are kind of designed to teach about the environmental impact on certain groups, whether it's plant life or, in case of Wingspan, um, birds and animal life. And I think that one is my last slide. Yes. Okay, so the last thing that's going to be it for this week's discussion. The last thing that I want to kind of go over for everyone, and I'm going to pause real fast. So I'm taking a look at our syllabus because we are quickly reaching the end of the semester. I just wanted to kind of give you guys a rundown for um, the next couple of weeks. You have 5 weeks until the last week of the semester, which is when final projects are due. I will be posting the full description of all of the final project requirements and everything this week. And I will also be adding in a playtest sign up for those who want to help each other playtest their prototypes to get ready for the final. One of the things that I'm going to require next week is a progress report for your final, which is for your final project, which is just kind of designed to see where you're at, see your plan and the steps you've taken in play testing and iterating on your prototype design. So make sure that by the end of next week that you have your prototype or your playtesting sessions and everything all sorted out. Um, and then also, I want to. I think I will. That missing discussion will be added to week 13 when there is nothing happening on that week. It's not going to be difficult. I just want people to look out for it because it's going to be. I have to. I have to put it in there, and I just forgot to do it that one week. So we're going to push it forward. If anybody has any questions about the final, about the upcoming projects, we are kind of upcoming discussions and things like that. We are kind of moving into these next 5 weeks. You should be working on your final project in one way or another. So I want to make sure that everybody is prepared for that and moving forward with it. Make sure to email me or message me through Canvas if you have any questions, and I'll see you guys next week.